Hi there. Last week we were talking, and I promised you that we would talk about how to bring it all back into your own life um, because it's been so chaotic. I mean, with the holidays and not able to travel, with stress factors, people sick, people not sick, um, the do's and don'ts, the chaos that has beset 2020, we have forgotten that we're supposed to be learning something here. And one of the things that we're supposed to be learning is really about growing spiritually. But we can't do that when our mind is all in a fog and we're making rash judgments and we're rushing to action. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how to get back in your body. One of the things that kind of drives me a little crazy is everybody says, "Oh, you can do this. Oh, this is going to happen. That's going to happen." But they don't tell you how to get you there. They just say it's going to happen as if by some miracle you're going to have all the doubts, all the fears immediately eradicated from your mind and set on this path of joy and bliss. There is that, but there is some work that has to be done. And one of it is to start recognizing and bringing it back in for you. And how do we do that? Well, we're in this third dimension for a reason. Um, I don't think we're going anywhere, but we can expound our mind to a more fourth degree dimensional thinking, maybe even fifth degree for some of us. One can hope. But to do that, we have to recognize that we live in a body. We have our spirit, our soul, and the light that makes us us all wedged in there along with our astral body. And all of that has to be comfortable and at ease. Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the brain and the spinal cord, the nervous system. We know that it's made up of the brain and the spinal cord, and we know that the spinal cord has all these nerves that go down the spinal cord. Well, it's nourished by its own fluid. Okay, it's a cerebral fluid that floats around your head and it helps your plates of your head move, and it has its own pulse. It's not very hard and it can't be felt. It doesn't move fast. It's just more of a ebb and flow, and it helps the plates of the brain adjust. It helps the eye orbital adjust so that it can do what it needs to do in case of injury or accident, or even just in case it gets stuck somewhere out of kink. That's why we have cranial sacral therapy. And it nourishes down our spine. And this is where I believe the Kundalini lies. It's at the base of our spine, waiting to unfurl and come up the chakras. And it uses our energy of that cerebral fluid going up and down, nourishing our nerves, getting the signals from there. And we're going to talk a little bit more when we get into chakras, a little bit more in depth about how the chakras are relating to our emotions and how that works. But for this conversation, I want you to focus on getting back into the five senses. We know that we have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. The sympathetic, it prepares body for physical and mental activity. It's our fight or flight. Um, it gives us that signal to run. And the parasympathetic kind of brings it back to homeostasis, to normal. It calms and it controls the body functions at rest. So, everything that we know, like the autonomic system, there is a part of us that has, with the autonomic system, it is you don't have to consciously go breathe every 5 seconds. So it takes over autonomic, and it helps to keep those functions going when the sympathetic system kicks into gear under fight or flight. And it also keeps us going So when we come to a point of rest, we can just relax and let go and just unwind. So these are all very important things to know. And the reason is because our nervous system is connected to our sensory system, our five senses. And getting connected to our five senses allows us to get to the sixth sense much easier and much more clear. So I want to talk to you a little bit about dermatones and myotones. The dermatones transmit sensory details back to the brain. So it branches off a nerve, okay? Like, so you hit yourself and that ping gets sent to the brain. So you feel that sensation, okay? And the myotones are a set of muscles innervated by a specific spinal nerve. What that means is it controls muscles to move, to pick up your reading glasses or a glass of water. The signal comes from the brain and it says, I'm hungry. So the myotones kick into gear and help make us lunch. Whereas while we're making our lunch, the dermatones might go, oh, that pot is hot. Don't touch it like that again, because it hits there and sends the signal back to the brain. So the brain is sending signals to the myotones to make movement, and the dermatones are telling the body or the brain what it's feeling. These are important in the fact that we have five senses, and those five senses can really tell us a lot about our world. So you might ask, how can taste or how can, sight, we see everything? Well, yeah, we do, and we take it for granted, and we're not really looking into our world and really seeing things, except if it's traumatizing and then it gets stuck in the loop. PTSD. I've had my share of PTSD moments that I had to work through. And there's lots of different ways that you can do that, but you still have that sight with the capabilities of being aware. Sorry, the dogs heard the neighbors. You'll still see something pleasant, but we don't think about that pleasant thing until it's time to recall it. Where something that's traumatic can be recalled in a heartbeat without us having any control. So what I want you to do is I want you to get a regular little notebook of some kind, and I want you to experience sight. What does that mean? I want you to go out and I want you to take notice of the different shapes that you see. Is it square, rectangle? Is it circular, triangle? Is it heart-shaped? All kinds of different things that we take for granted, that we see every day, that are messages. Now, we get over 23,000 messages a day. That's enough information to put us into overload. But fortunately for us, we're used to getting that information, so we dismiss a lot of it, but it's still interacting and it still has an effect on us. So I want you to choose what you're seeing. I want you to look for a shape. I don't care what shape it is, but I want you to spend the day looking for it. So if you go into work, or if you go into a store, or if you even just go into the living room, I want you to take a few minutes to assess the room, see what the shapes are. I had a neighbor. He was, I don't know, lack of proper term, I'm going to call him an apprentice priest, a lay priest. I guess in the Catholic Church, they started opening this up for people who wanted to become priests but were married to be able to fill the shoes of a priest eventually. And so he had chosen that path, and he would go walking and he would look for crosses everywhere. And he challenged me. I says, crosses? How do you see crosses? He goes, just do it. Just look for crosses. And I thought, this guy's out of his mind. I started seeing crosses everywhere, and it blew my mind how much I was seeing that I didn't really recognize that I was actually seeing. I wasn't paying attention. Now, I know a lot of people like the term mindful. Well, that came out as a catchphrase for what, when I was in school, my teachers told me, pay attention, or my parents were going, you're not paying attention. You need to pay attention. What they were all saying is the same thing. Look at what you're doing, how you're doing it. Get in touch with your moment. So I want you to take the opportunity for a few days to look for shapes. Use one day or even a half a day for one shape, and then switch it to another, and see if you start to recognize what else you're seeing in your surroundings, things that you may not have even paid attention to that you are starting to notice. It's kind of like looking in those, those press board ceilings, that they drop down ceilings that they have, and you can see the patterns as you're at the doctor's, at the dentist, looking up, and you're going, oh my. And you can start seeing little patterns, and they're similar all over. And so you try to find the patterns throughout the next panel and the next panel for the panel that you were looking at. If you haven't done this, then okay, that's okay. I'm kind of weird and I do that. Anyway, I also look for it in carpets. So it really brings you in by what you're seeing and registering. Oftentimes you do this, especially people who are very intuitive. They will go in and assess the room. They will sweep the room. They will see what they see, look for an exit. It's all triggered by making sure that they are safe and who's safe to talk to. It's a protection mode. So they would do this. Most of us do. Now, the next couple of days after that, I want you to look into colors. Choose a color that you don't normally wear, that you don't normally think about. Not your favorite color, because that's too easy. A color that you wouldn't normally see, like a burnt orange or a magenta. Look for that color. Seafoam green. I love Crayola colors. You can come up with some great colors that way. And look and see. You can see what, on boxes, you can look to see what is standing out on you. And I guess the Coca-Cola red is the color to use in advertising. They found that that was the color that drew everybody to see. And I guess that's why people love red cars. So do police, by the way. So I don't ever own a red car because it just kind of draws everybody's eyes to you. But look to see around your surroundings what colors you're seeing and how they make you feel. Sorry about that. I'm going to shut the door. Hold on. Maybe we'll have a little bit more quiet now. So I want you to take that time to see the colors and see how it really reacts to you. Is an off-white comfortable for you? Is it the eggshell white? Is it the snowflake white? What is it that you're looking, and what is it you're seeing, and how does it make you feel? So that's dealing with our sight. The next thing I want you to deal with is I want you to, after a few days of that, I want you to go to taste. How many times do we sit at a table with our family and our friends and we eat without really experiencing all the flavors of the food? This is why it's easy for us to get addicted to potato chips, sodas, because they're very pungent tastes, very powerful tastes, salty, extreme sweet. I gave up sodas for a long time, and I had a sip of somebody's soda, and I was horrified by how sweet it was. I didn't remember it was being that sweet. So tasting things, tasting your food. Now I want you to go further with the tasting. I know this sounds really crazy, but I want you to taste objects. Everything has an element of taste to it. When you taste a raw vegetable, it has life attached. When you taste a table, it's kind of flat, bland, and kind of, you can taste maybe some dust. I know, gross, but it's well worth the investigation. You're trying to reactivate those senses that you don't normally pay attention to. Now, if you notice a child, 2, 3 years old, they move through their emotions ever so much more quickly than we do. And the reason they're able to move through their emotions easier is because they are embracing the sensations. Okay. I remember watching my granddaughter for the first time see the chain link fence, and that there was something through the chain link fence. It was like it dawned on her there was something between her and what was on the other side of the fence. As she stared, mesmerized, she walked up and she really just reached out and touched it. And she was like really curious. And I remember thinking that when I was a kid. I remember seeing things for the first time, vague memories, or having the realization they were there for the first time. I probably had seen them, but it wasn't something I had really recognized. So I want you to recognize what you're tasting. I want you to taste paper. I remember making spitballs. I know, I was that kid. I was kind of ornery. And the first time I learned to make spitballs was awesome. I could spit those things. My mother about beat me to death, but that's okay. I don't blame her. Back in those days, they beat their kids, and I had spitball everywhere. But the sensation of tearing paper, wadding it up, getting it just the right size to go through the straw, and zing across the room to my sister. It was great. My sister didn't think so, and that's how I got found out. She tattled. Kids are kids. Anyway, so I want you to taste things. I want you to taste your clothes. I want you to taste everything, your skin. The funny thing about it is I have a grandchild, and he tasted everything. He licked everything. He licked the wall of the house. He licked tabletops when we'd go into a restaurant. He licked my leg. And that was his way of understanding the world. It was his exploration. So think of it as your opportunity to reintroduce yourself to your world and explore it. And you do that for a few days. And when you're doing it, I want you to play with your smell a little bit, okay? Because smell and taste go together, okay? So when you taste your food, if you haven't noticed, you can taste more when your nose isn't stopped up. When you have a cold, everything tastes nasty or bland. So plug your nose and eat your food. And then unplug your nose for the next bite. Taste for the salty, taste for the fresh and alive food, taste canned food. Is it different than frozen food? Is different than fresh food? You can have a great time experimenting with this. Wine connoisseurs taste wine. They can tell you everything that's been in that wine. I didn't like wine that much, so I wasn't really going to swirl it around in my mouth. I didn't care. If I had to have a glass of wine out of politeness, most of it stayed in the glass. Because I just wasn't a wine drinker. I think it's a carryover from childhood. As the Italians family that I grew up in, you got a little thimble full of wine because it was good for your vitamin source. It was a good vitamin source. So they gave kids a little tiny bit of wine and wondered why everybody turns into alcoholics. It's because that was the thought process, get there healthy. But I didn't like the taste then, and I still can't quite wrap my tongue around it now, no pun intended. Then I want you to smell. Smelling is one of the most amazing things that we can do. If you're a smoker, I can tell you, you haven't smelled in a long time. How do I know this? I smoked from the age of 12 till I was about 40. And when I quit smoking, it took about 6 months. But I started smelling flowers. And I started smelling the land after rain came. And I started smelling the rain as it cleared the air of the dust. And I started smelling my house. And I smelled everybody in the house. Now I can tell you one of the funny things about that is that smell became so intense for me that I have to really watch, because I could always smell well, but I could smell better after I gave up the cigarettes. My dad, as he was an older man, had gotten a divorce, and he did what all of us do when we get a divorce. He started to dress again. And he put on shampoo, mouthwash, toothpaste, his soap, cologne, aftershave, and deodorant. And they weren't the same brand. I wish that it was, but oh. And my kids and I dubbed it the grandpa odor. There was an underlining feeling of dry rot being smothered by all these smells. I'm not saying my father was dry rot. It just gave you the feeling that that's what it was trying to hide. I wished you'd use, and I told him this, you need to use just one. You can't be putting all your different, you're assaulting everybody's senses. It was unbearable. So smell your house, smell your clothes that you haven't worn in a while versus the just washed clothes. Don't use dryer sheets and smell the difference of your clothes. I will tell you the funny thing about that is that if you're using dryer sheets, aside from the fact that they put carcinogens out in your air, your clothes, it'll take a long time for that dryer sheet smell to leave. It's not making your clothes any softer. You can get the little wool balls. They're about this big, and you throw them in. You can use an essential oil, a drop on it, just one drop, and toss it in, and it'll give it a light smell. If you don't like your clothes smelling like whatever detergent you use. Personally, I use all free and clear. I do not like synthetic perfumes, colognes, scents in my any of the cleaning products that I use. I like to use vinegar, which to me is a whole lot healthier than Lysol. I am not a fan of the pungent clean, but that's just me. It doesn't clean any better. It's just I'm not a fan of the smell, because I notice that smell really has an effect on me. And when you start to notice this, you're going to start to notice what triggers you, what makes you happy and what makes you sad. When I became a massage therapist many years ago, we were told, do not wear perfume or any pungent smell on you, make an unscented deodorant, do all these different things, because you can trigger people's memories. And sometimes those memories aren't very pleasant. So I learned to start getting away from that in the years that I did massage, so I didn't offend my clients. And now it's really hard for me to smell all the different smells that is chemically made up. So with that being said, think about it. Those little wool balls are reusable. They're going to be much cheaper than the dryer sheets or fabric softener, and they're going to be less toxic to your world. But yeah, once you get used to smelling your world, you're going to start seeing that you're able to tell that maybe your car needs an oil change. You're going to be more engaged in your world. You're going to be able to tell who's been hanging out with the dogs. I have skunks that come by and spray my dogs at least once a year. And one of my little ones, she still smells like skunk, and it's been 8 months. And nobody else can smell it, but I do. So smell is a very powerful thing. I want you to go and smell your friends' houses too. There used to be, oh yeah, you could go into somebody's house and see if they ate Limburger cheese and fish. They had fish the night before. Well, now we mask it, but we have incense, we have all these great things to mask. But smell what you can smell. Smell their clothes, smell other people, smell your partner, smell your kids. I'm going to tell you this, and I hope it brings a smile to your face because it's one of my fond memories. My son at the age of 16 absolutely stunk to me. I would tell him, go take a shower. And he said, Mom, I just got out of the shower. I'm like, oh my God, you stink so bad. And I'd be like, please, what deodorant did you use? I didn't put any on yet. Oh my God. What was I smelling? And his room reeked. Well, his hormones at 16 were raging. It was pheromones I was smelling. And so I can tell you that I call it the mommy odor. When I talk to women now that have 16-year-old sons and they're complaining about this, I said it's nature's way of saying, don't touch that. That's your child, and that's not to be bred with. And so it turns off every woman that's in close relation to the family, to that one 16-year-old boy. I know this because my daughter could smell it, but nobody else could. None of his friends, none of his girlfriends could smell him, but his sister and I. Oh my God, it was horrid. So smell is powerful. And if we want our pheromones to be inviting somebody new into our life, we need to quit cluttering it up with a lot of other smells. Just let yourself do an antiperspirant, not a deodorant, just do an antiperspirant and let your pheromones free. I can tell you that it doesn't matter what age you are, you will still be attractive to someone. Now, we've gone through sight, taste, smell. The next one I want you to go to is touch. Touch is very sensual. Now, I will tell you, after years of doing massage, I would come home and somebody I was with for 10 years would poke, like, what you doing? What you doing? And he loved doing this because he knew it would irritate me. Touch can be overstimulating. When you've been touched and you have been touching all day long, it can be overstimulating. So sometimes you need to just step back. But if we don't know that these can be possible triggers to ourselves, we don't know that it can ramp us up and make us go off on a dime. So I can tell you that you want to learn touch. You want to learn correct touch. Correct touch is not, pounding your hand on the table. It's putting your hand on the table. Putting your hand on somebody's shoulder. Caressing somebody's face. Touch transmits emotion. And when we can get back in our body, we can send signals on with all of our senses. The way we look, the way we smile, the way we lean in, the way we lean back, maybe scared, cross our arms off, do not, stand back, the way we reach and touch things. My daughter told me, she said, you make food look so fun. Well, I learned to taste my food. It took me a while. I had to slow down. I was raised in a hotel. So I just shoveled food in my mouth so I could get back to work. It was a family owned and operated hotel. And I did. I literally shoved food in my mouth and ran. And it took me a while to really enjoy my food. So I started with touch. What did it feel like? Tasting it and chewing it, swallowing it, smelling it. I used all my senses. So now I actually enjoy eating it. And I still am guilty of rushing through a meal. Don't get me wrong. But when I have a moment to really embrace that touch, I use my tongue to feel my food. I know it sounds gross, but it allows me to slow down my eating so I can enjoy my food and let my food actually nourish me instead of me just shoveling it in and running and barely able to digest it. I want you to touch the walls of your house. Does it feel good? Do they feel warm? Do they feel cold? What about windows? Do they feel dirty? Touch the tables, touch your jeans, touch. There's a difference in the way jeans feel than the way they did in the 70s. I guarantee you. Cloth has changed because that lycra they put in there. So touch everything that you can and experiment with how you touch your friends and family. Reach over, put your arm out to them, lightly touch their arm. That allows them to know that you're engaging with them, okay, in a gentle way. And see what touch does. It really lets you feel your body and touch with different parts of your body. So if you take your glasses, you can rub them up and down your arm. Of course, you want it on the skin, but I don't want to smudge my glasses. Feel what they feel that way versus on your hand. Feel wet. Feel dry. Feel coarse. Does it feel raspy? Does it feel nubbly? Does it feel airy? What does it feel? Soft, gentle? And then just really just feel. Get into the feeling of it. And the last one I want you to do is hearing. I'll tell you why. Sight and hearing we take for granted. We are often surprised by touch, taste, and smell. It's either pungent, ooh, or spicy, ah, or it is comforting or harsh. But sight and hearing we take for granted. So as you hear things, listen. Listen to the words that somebody is saying to you. We've gotten very numb using social media in our ability to communicate with people. We lost a lot in translation because our ego gets involved and we struggle with that and we aren't listening. I'll give you an example. That same relationship I told you about with, he didn't hear me when I said, I think I broke my foot. He didn't hear me because he wanted to stay on Facebook because he was having fun on Facebook. I had a broken foot. One of the reasons why the relationship ended, because he wasn't able to hear me any longer. So with that being said, I got to let the dog in. Sorry. No, get down. Now you all have seen Max and Phoebe jump up in my lap, and Max is about to do so now. He would go in and he couldn't hear my pain. And I tried to find a urgent care. I was in another country, so I tried to find an urgent care with a x-ray machine so I could drive myself to get my foot x-rayed. And there wasn't one open. And he came in, he had heard me finally. and I was in pain, and he found a place for me to go the next morning. But we're not always listening to each other. We, especially if it's not convenient. So you can't be in your body if you're not listening to each other. You're in your addictions, you're in your ego, you're in your self-controlled environment that for your own pleasure, but you're not in your body and you're not in your spirit, because a normal human being who is listening to what's being said will hear you, and you need to hear them also. So take a moment and listen to the words that are being said to you. Reach out, hear those words. No, Max, you don't get to lick me. Hear the words that they're saying to you. Are they asking for your help? Are they complimenting you? Are they disrespecting you? With social media, we don't hear people's tones as they're typing their responses. So we're left to our own interpretations. So are we hearing the righteous indignation? Are we hearing anger? That's the problem. Our hearing, we have let go of all the sounds of the birds, the sounds of the animals, the sounds of our neighbors, the sounds of bees, lawnmowers, the sound of our heart beating. So take a moment this next few weeks to get back in your body, because we're not done yet, and we're not through this really tough time. And if you can get back in your body, you're going to lose the anxiety. And that meditative place that you can get to by engaging your senses is going to give you more answers than any news broadcast, any advertisement, or any talk show host. We have within us this time that we're coming to reach great heights. But we can't do it if we're not engaged with our own self. With that being said, my heart to all of yours. I hope you have an absolutely marvelous day, and I'll talk with you soon. Mwah. Bye now.